Well, geez. Thanks for showing up for Trav's celebration of life. We know that there's probably going to be, I'm already starting, there's going to be tears shed today, but we want to make sure that in Travis's true fashion and memory that this is a true celebration of life. There's going to be a lot of drinks and stories and laughing, and we're going to have time to tell stories, and pretty sure that the family is going to say a lot of good things about Trav, but I would challenge the friends in the room to tell the real stories, and don't be shy, because there's a lot of them. So we're going to start off with Sally and Mac. So they're going to come up and say a few words. Sally's Trav's mom, and Mac is Travis's stepdad. He came from Nevada. So.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I won't get through this dry-eyed by any means. Travis was a very bright light, Most of you know that. He walked in a room and he lit it up. And a couple weeks ago, we saw that light flicker, and it went out. But on July 17th, at 7 o'clock in the morning, much too soon, he was a communicator in the family. I called him a megaphone. He was the first to call you in anything, whether it be weather. He told me when the Twin Towers fell. I didn't know. I turned it on. He told us everything. To me, this is worse than the Twin Towers falling. But I do know he is in heaven. I do know that. He loved the Lord, and I know the Lord loved him. And I think that God in his mercy let Travis go. Life was hard down here for him. In the end especially. I will miss his light. I will miss him every day the rest of my life. In closing, I want to just say he was very brave. And I know his brothers say the same. We were with him, and he faced death. He faced it. And he was strong. He was brave. Thank you for putting up with my face in tears. I'm sorry. I'll just move over, honey.
Well, I have to say, I put up with this face every day, and I love it. You can shed tears that he's gone, or you can smile because he's lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he'll come back, or you can open your eyes and see all he's left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be filled of the love you shared. Very important. You can turn your back on tomorrow or live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memories and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what he wanted. Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. Please go on. And Georgia, I'm sorry. Remiss, but thank you for this wonderful.
Okay, so for a lot of you that may not know in here, we were the Caffreys, myself, we've got a group of Cedar Woolley people over here. We were born and raised in a logging town, and so it wouldn't really be a true funeral if we didn't have some country music. So good choice with the Vince Gill. So we're going to have Greg come up and share some words.
Man, that's not easy following up Vince, so I'll do my best. So, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here to honor the life of Trav. My name's Greg, and Trav is my older brother. As I sat next to Travis in his final days, comforting, loving on him, it really hit home for me that our daily phone calls, text messages, most times about absolutely nothing, other days about business, golf, or the Seahawks, it would no longer be. How can this be? My best friend and older brother would no longer be able to respond. I remember our last round of golf we played together at Echo Falls. Nothing out of the ordinary, just us talking some smack. What I would give to try and beat you one last time at our childhood course, Avalon. Just like when we were younger, it was me trying to keep up with him. Although I think I beat him by a stroke or two that day, chirping at every hole. Finally, I gotcha. Finally. T-Caff loved his two beautiful daughters, Mackenzie and Madison, very much. Family and golf, probably in that order. However, Trav had some great friendships. And he was pretty darn picky. And quite frankly, some of you here, I'm surprised you made the cut. So, Trav was one of the most passionate and loving people you could have ever met. A heart of gold. Incredibly generous, caring, and competitive really doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. One of my favorite memories was when T-Caff flew us up for the NFC Championship game. Flight, hotel, first class, everything. T planned it all and took his little brother with him. PJ, Josh, you guys were there. Trav was a man of faith, and I know he's teeing it up in heaven. You know, Trav, he wasn't the biggest fan of work, I'll tell you. But I'll tell you, he wanted to have a good time rather than work. And I can honestly say I never had a bad time when he was around. So God bless him. I'll truly miss our family get-togethers during the holidays. Thanksgiving, we kind of have a family tradition of watching the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's his favorite movie. And no one quoted it quite as well as him. Say, those aren't pillows, from the quote. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. But one of the biggest things I've realized through all this is everything is temporary, except my love. I will love I will love Travis, and will cherish our memories of my best friend always. Until we meet again, your biggest fan, your little brother, Grego.
Good job, Greg. So now we'll have Angela and Mark come up to say a few words. Angela is Trav's older sister.
It's always the first thing I have to do is everyone's about a foot taller than me, including you, so getting used to this, including Trav, too. Yeah, well, thank you all for being here. Mark and I so deeply appreciate this special time to gather, and we really feel such love and support being with you in this time. We feel incredibly cared for and just held up by your prayers, your presence, all the ways that you have shown us support, not just today, but in the recent weeks and even the last few months that have been so hard. So I thought it would be important just to share a perspective of a few things we experienced together and learned in Travis's last days. Really wanted my immediate family to hear my respect and admiration for just how everyone showed up. each person really wanting to spend as much time as possible when we knew the time was so much shorter than we were hoping. All of us really huddled together under one roof at Brandon's place in Scottsdale, and we haven't done that since back on Sterling Street in the '80s. So it was a crash course in nuclear family life, and I have to say, we learned a lot, and it was amazing. We really could not have imagined this type of reason so painful to gather, but each person had this instinct. It was so loving and gave everything they had. So I just wanted you to hear that from me. Each of you, Greg, Brando, Dad, and Mom. Beautiful. Thank you. And I saw such sacrifice, such love. There were times that we just were exhausted. There was time to be quiet, definitely time to cry, many times to laugh, and that's what we all needed. So thank you. And I can really say that through this experience, I think we each saw a reflection of some part of God's unconditional love for each of us, and that was really neat. I know that people have varying understandings of what they read in the scriptures, and my take on it is that the Bible really doesn't ever promise us a life without some suffering, but it does say that God's with us, and we really felt that. And we thank all of you for being a part of how we felt that. So some of you know my work actually is in end-of-life care, so I am with families all day, every day, who are on this journey somewhere. So you learn a lot. You learn so much by being in close. But of course, this is different, right? It's your people. So I just, of course, have been thinking about how does this affect us, and wanted to just leave with a couple of questions and then a couple thoughts that I feel like I've learned from Trav's life. So one of them is who shows up, in our time of greatest need for each one of us, whether that's end of life or illness or financial downturn or broken relationships. Who shows up for us? That's a really important question. And then when someone close to me is suffering and at the end of life, what can I do to bless and encircle them in that time? I also think about how can I be preparing myself, to face the inevitable difficulties that come, right? If we're blessed to live into our senior years, things come, right? How do we get ready for that? And lastly, will I kind of put myself on pause now and then to ask, what is my life actually about, and how would I want to be remembered? So just a couple things that stand out to me from Trav and what he taught us and what we will remember. Number one, enjoy the people that God gives you and enjoy them now. Number two, give your best gifts. Don't hold back. And number three, play the game you love with all your heart. So thank you for being here with us.
Thanks. That's, I think, very well done. I think if the last 18 months has taught us anything, it's how to slow down and appreciate the now. So I think, where's Gary? Gary, I think, is next. Gary's Travis's dad. Gary said I might be in trouble.
Hearing aids, glasses, and fake leg. No, there you go. I got to straighten a few things out first. What did you say? He was a good communicator, or what was? Yeah, he was a squealer. That's all he was, the biggest squealer you ever saw. If you wanted anybody in the family to know something, you'd say, Travis, don't tell him. And almost before you got off the phone, he'd have everybody know. And then you'd be talking to somebody in the family and, well, wait a minute, how'd you find that out? And he did that all of his life. And I probably know some good stories on most of you, but I can't remember names real well. So if I come up and call you Tom or Mary, it's because I forgot your name. There's a lot of Tom and Marys here today. But that September 30th, 78 will go down in my memory. About 6 o'clock, after Travis was born, I went to Cascade Pizza and ordered a big pizza. And went home and ate it and got in trouble because I didn't go back to the hospital. But you can only do it. I have 4 kids, so, you know, what are you going to do? Where are the other 20 pages? 2,886 pages. How long do I have? Okay. All right.
As long as you want.
That's right. I've got a closed audience here, and it's chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the... Wait a minute. Somebody better check Alden. I think he's going to have a heart attack. I think I'm going to read the whole Bible to him. Don't worry, Alden. And we'll get you out of here before a collection, so it's all right. Okay? On June 24th, Chris and I went to Scottsdale to spend some time with Travis. I asked Travis during that time a list of questions. And during the 3 weeks I was with him, I got all the answers. But the most important question, and the first one I asked him, I said, Travis, you know, your mom and I kind of beat you to death with the Bible and going to church every Sunday and Sunday school and then back Sunday evening and then Wednesday night at Royal Rangers. So they in Vacation Bible School, and they were inundated with it. But I asked him, I said, Travis, I got to ask you, is Jesus Christ still your Savior? Do you still believe that He died for your sins, rose again from the grave? Is He your Savior? Travis looked at me and said, yes, Dad. Jesus is my Savior. You know, from that point on, my heart wasn't troubled. The last psalm that Travis and I read together, I'm going to read to you, if I can. 139th Psalm. And it goes, O Lord, you've examined my heart, and you know everything about me. You know when I sit down or when I stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it. You go before me and you follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go to the grave, you are there. If I ride the wings of morning, if I dwell in the furthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me, and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me, and the light around me to become night, but even in darkness I cannot hide from you. To you the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complete. Your workmanship is marvelous, how well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born, and every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me, O God. They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you're still with me. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts, and point out anything in me that offends you. And lead me along the path of everlasting life. You know, you hear people often say when someone passes that, I'll see him again. But the question is, will you? There's only one key that opens heaven's door, where Travis will be teeing it up on the King's tees. And that's Jesus Christ. The reason I say that, you're all important to us, and we care for you. I asked Travis other questions. I said, tell me about your first car. And he said it was a blue old Toyota. You bought it from your brother. And we went down to get it, and you had to tow it home because it wouldn't run. I don't quite remember it that way. And then he said, PJ and I would go run around in it, and every time I wanted him to change the radio station, he had to open the glove box because that's where you put it. I asked him, I said, what do you remember about your brothers and sisters when you were young? He said, my sister? You mean my second mother? He says, I could never get away with anything with her there. You guys would go out to dinner and leave her to watch us, and she would have a list when you got home, and I was always in trouble. Travis was the only one of my children that had to have a spanking every night. We'd put him in bed and look in the corner, and there he was. And get back into bed, well, he wouldn't. So once he got a spanking, he was fine. But that was him. That was Travis. I said, well, what do you remember about Brandon? He just shook his head and he said, you know, he said, I remember he had that old red pickup truck. And he'd come to pick me up at school. And I'd go to grab the handle, and every time he'd pull ahead. And he said he'd do that 4 or 5 times till I got so mad I wouldn't get in the truck. And then I asked him, I said, well, how about Greg? And he said, you know, we picked on him all the time. He said, I remember one time I had him on his back in the backyard and just picking on him. And he got so mad, he knocked me off, jumped on top of me, and started wailing on me. He said, he's a tough little kid. Remember, we were God's first. He loved us first. He watched us being formed in our mother's womb. He breathed the breath of life into us. He chose us. He knew how many days we would live before the first day of life. He enriches others' lives with us, and he has every right to take him home at his will. I hope you all find the key to Heaven's Gate and tee it up with Travis. Thank you.
The blue, was it a Celica? Was it a that's we're going to talk about that car a little bit later. What we're going to do is Brandon's going to come up and speak, and then we're going to take a little bit of a break from 2:30 to 3, or I don't know what time it is, a half-hour break or so to have some drinks and some food in the back, and then what we'll do is we'll kind of reconvene in the places that we're sitting, and then kind of the fun starts where we get to tell stories. So if you guys could think of stories, you know, I know it's not easy to get up and speak in front of people, but if you don't, I'm going to call you out. So, so be thinking. So, okay, so Brandon will come up and say a few words.
I'm going to try not to make this some long, rambling string of consciousness here. But, you know, thinking about what to say today about my brother, and you know, there's just so much, right? And so I'm just going to kind of run through some stories that I have, some fun things that I remember, and some fun stuff that I think that you guys would like to hear. But first off, I really want to thank everybody for coming. A lot of people traveled to get here. We had a really great turnout for him, which is amazing. He obviously had a lot of really good friends, and that was probably one of the things that he was the best at, was making friends and keeping friends. And anyhow, to say that brothers have a close bond is a pretty big understatement. So I was really lucky to have Travis for 42 years. I mean, it was a blast. And the one thing that he would definitely want today is he'd want today to be a fun event. I mean, if you knew one thing about the guy, was the minute he walked into every room, it was fun. I mean, it didn't matter what you're going to do. It was just a good time. So Travis John Caffrey, Travis, Travo, Trav, T-Bone, Boney, T-Calf, just some of the names that we called him. And there's a lot more that we can't talk about in front of the room here. But life with Travis was full of excitement, fun, and adventure. I mean, as little kids, didn't matter. Like my dad said, he was always getting in trouble, but I mean, he was a blast. He brought the spark to every room, and sometimes that spark got him in trouble. Like my dad said, he definitely basically got a spanking every single day as a kid. He was always pulling pranks. One of his favorite pranks was he'd wait until you're in the shower. We only had one bathroom, so Angela, Greg, everybody, you know, sharing one bathroom. My mom and dad had their bathroom, right? And he'd wait until you're in the shower, you're nice and warm, and he'd dump a cup of cold water over the side on your head. He thought that was the best trick ever. But we reciprocated that a few times for him, too. He loved pulling pranks. He was always doing stuff like that. He was famous around our house for leaving empty cartons in the fridge, right? So Angela came up with the term, somebody Travis the milk, somebody Travis the ice cream, somebody Travis the Hot Pockets. The guy would basically eat the last of whatever it was, put it back in there, and shut the door. I mean, he was famous for that. He always did that. He was also really good at avoiding chores. So anytime that there was chores, didn't matter what it was, and it usually had something to do with going to the bathroom. So he conveniently had to go to the bathroom often. Yeah. We'd had, Greg kind of alluded to it, we had lots of fist fights as kids, right? And I was thinking about our fights, and we were always fighting, doing something. But the fights didn't last very long. And the one thing that I do remember about our fights is we never once ever punched each other in the face. It was just kind of a love thing, I think, you know. But there was a lot of body shots. And one time he kicked me in the ribs pretty hard. But every day with him was fun. It was an adventure. There was literally never a dull moment. I mean, you know, when he was around, it didn't matter what you were doing. It was going to be fun. As a teenager, Travis, his love for sports, well, as a kid, I was going to tell you about his love for sports. His love for sports, we knew he had a huge love for sports when my uncle came and gave him a Pittsburgh Pirate hat, and all of a sudden he's a Pirates fan, right? And in 1990, they lost the playoffs, and the guy literally cried for like 4 hours, okay? He also quit a job one time because he didn't want to miss the playoff Seahawks game, okay? My dad wasn't happy. Well, my dad wasn't too happy about that. But he saw the game. As a teenager, he got really good at golf really fast, and that was a little bit challenging for me because I was a senior and he was a freshman. We were battling it out for one or two spots on our team, and there was a lot of times when I would just leave him at the golf course after the round. He'd be chirping too much to me, and I would just be like, I'm not giving you a ride home. One of these guys probably gave him a ride home. So he got left a lot. But he was that guy that he loved the big stage, and he could always make that long putt. I'll never forget that. He nicknamed his putter Gentle Bone. Okay? Yeah, and he literally, that's still in his golf bag today. Gentle Bone. I don't think he ever changed the grip on it or anything else. And he would tuck his putter in with him at night before a big tournament. He was a beauty. Some of my favorite golf stories, because there was a lot of them. One day we tee off on the north 9, and he starts chirping, and he's playing good, and I'm playing bad, right? And we're just with some random twosome, a man and wife, right? And by the third hole, I mean, there's no more golf bags. We are just going at it, right? Just the golf is done now, and now it's full on fighting, right? So the twosome, they just kind of were like, what are these guys doing? And they played off. And they went off on their own, and I don't know how many more holes we got in, but that was one fun little fight that I remember. I remember his hole-in-one at Egbers tournament, and Hams was in the can and missed the whole thing. He went to go take a leak and missed the whole hole-in-one. Another hole-in-one was at Bandon. I got a picture over there, number 6. We were playing Bandon, and he hits a hole-in-one, and we were so excited that we were all piling on each other and woohoo, and I came away there with a bloody nose out of the deal. It was just, but it was exciting. Yeah, a lot of great golf times and stories with him. In his 20s, in our 20s, whatever, we lived together 7 more times at 7 different places. Once was with Kolak, and that was in a 1-bedroom apartment. There's 3 of us. That was a little tight, but I guess I didn't get enough of the guy for 18 years. I had to live with him 7 more times. So he was born to sell. The guy was an incredible salesman. I mean, the guy could sell ice to an Eskimo. That's an understatement. Working with, in Toyota, he was a top sales guy. Mortgage, he did great. And sometimes I'd just go listen to him because when he got in front of somebody, it was like he was a whole different guy. Like, where does this guy come from? He's like smart. He's making sense. He's making sense out of this deal. I'm like, but I mean, literally, a guy was super talented. He could sell like nobody I've ever seen. He was quick on his feet, and he just was really good at making connections with people. Some of the things I love about him, he generally cared about people. He, like they said, he'd call you all the time, right? I don't think I ever saw an email from the guy ever. I mean, he'd call. It was always a call, right? And he everywhere he went, he would generally ask people how they're doing, and it wasn't just like, how you doing? He really cared. I mean, he would make friends with the convenience store clerk. I mean, it didn't matter who it was, he knew everybody everywhere he went, right? And he wasn't like, there was nothing in it for him. He was just genuine. He was great at being a friend and maintaining friendships. He was really good at that. He was extremely passionate. There was never any time that you'd ask him, what do you think about this? And he'd be like, I don't know. He could take it or leave it, right? I mean, he had an opinion one way or the other. And his passion for sports, music, his daughters, like I said, amazing at making connections. Even at the end when he was in the hospital, I mean, he was the mayor of that place, right? And he was introducing me to the nurses, and this is so-and-so, and these are their kids, they've got 2 kids and all this stuff. And even at the very end, I mean, he was brave, and he had a great attitude. And so, I don't know what happened to my other notes. But anyways, he was a great brother, and we love him, and we're going to do the best we can to make sure that his legacy and his memories are talked about and shared. And just thank you for coming today. So that's it.
I don't know exactly how we want to do this, but it's kind of like an open mic night. I don't know if we want to kind of start from like the projector over on this side of the room and then work this way, but we're going to, I was just telling Mac that it's the only reason I agreed to be the MC for this celebration of life was for this moment, to be able to kind of roast Travis. And there's some stories that we're not going to tell all the good ones, right? I mean, that's but we're going to tell some stories that a lot of people may not know. Our core group of friends have probably heard these before. Sally and Gary know all about them because we got caught doing everything. So I'll go ahead and start with just a few stories. Let's see. To go back to the blue Toyota Celica, I wish we had a picture of that thing. But Trav, so I lived in town across from this restaurant, and Trav showed up at my house one day, and he didn't have his driver's license yet. And I just happened to be looking out the window, and he pulled into the restaurant, and I didn't know that he had gotten that car, and he came walking across the road, and I go, "Why did you park over there?" "Well, I don't have my driver's license, and I don't know, if my mom and dad drive by and stuff, I don't want them to know that I'm out driving around." And so I said, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, do you want to go for a drive?" And I said, "Sure, let's go for a drive," right? He didn't have his driver's license, but who cares, right? So this Toyota Celica was, I don't know what year it was, but it had a sunroof. And I'd never really seen a sunroof like it, although I had a car later in life that had the sunroof like it, but you had to like manually open it. And that's the first thing when we get into Travis's car. He's not supposed to be driving, and the first thing that he does is starts to do this. And I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "That's my sunroof." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool, right?" And so we literally drive around town for probably 45 minutes or so. And then he goes, "Okay, I got to get back. My parents are going to be home anytime." I was like, "Okay, so, that may be a story that I don't know that you guys know." But let's see. There's some other stories here that, We were driving to a golf tournament okay, so we didn't know this at the time, and we were in 8th grade. And we were over at Gary and Sally's house, and we were watching, it was spring break, and we were watching baseball, and there was nothing to eat at the house. So Trav's like, "Why don't we order pizza?" I said, "Oh, okay, let's order pizza, but I don't have any money." He goes, "I don't either." And I said, "Okay, well," he's like, "But I know where my parents' checkbook is." And I said, "Okay, back then pizza was probably $10. I can't remember how. 13. See? What we didn't know is that, when you wrote a check back then, you got all your checks delivered to you in the mail, and so that's how you kind of reconciled your checkbook. And so Trav's like, "Hey, my parents found out that we ordered pizza and that I signed the check." And I go, "How?" And he told me. So that's, yeah. Right. Yeah. That's the thing we all know about Trav is he would not admit to anything, right? He would go and he would make you feel like you were totally wrong, even though you knew you were totally right, okay? So we started to become best friends in the 7th grade, and in the 8th grade, we'd had some downtime. I don't think either one of us really had a job. And we were over at a friend's house, and we thought it would be, and I'm telling stories where, like, I'm Travis's right-hand guy, because I don't want people to think, like, I mean, I was right along with him, right? I don't know whose idea these were when we did it, but we both felt like they were good ideas. And so I totally lost track of what I was gonna say here, yeah, okay, yeah, let's talk about stolen beer. Yeah, so we were in 8th grade, and we thought it was a good idea. We saw a 12-pack of Schmidt beer in a friend's garage, and we thought it would be a good idea to, yeah, Marty and Diane Brown's house. We were going over there to visit Jennifer Brown, and we were good friends, and honestly, I don't even know that we we might have drank one beer, right? There wasn't a lot of, I mean, we weren't drunk, or we were just being dumb kids. And we got caught, of course, right? So they noticed that the beer was gone, and they reached out to our families. Yep, and we of course denied it. And so there was another kid with us, and we weren't good friends with him. He was kind of, I don't know why he was there. So we decided that we were going to pay this kid $20 to take the blame, right? And he didn't have much of a home life, so he's like, my mom won't care. So literally we have to have my parents, Trav's parents, and this kid's parents are all in the same room, and Gary and Marty they know what's going on, but we're not admitting to it. Right, okay, Sally was there. So anyways, this kid was a true champion, right? This kid was sitting in the corner of the room, and he's like, I did it. These guys didn't have anything to do with it, but they, obviously they knew we had something to do with it. So Marty says, I've got a friend who's a police detective at Cedar Woolley Police Department. His name's Ken Rosenkrantz. And when the cops were brought into it, I totally flipped. I totally flipped 100%. I just said, okay, we did it. We did it. And if Travis was here today, he would still say he didn't do it. He really would. He really would. And I totally I cracked. And he gave me, and okay, so after we got in trouble, yeah, Sally took Trav to the police department, to Gary, and I don't know what happened there. That might be for a little, probably a little more intimate setting. We'll leave that one alone. So I've got a ton more stories. I mean, I could tell you how the first time I stayed with Travis, it was Travis and Greg and I, and we were at their house on Prairie Lane. And it was just the three of us, and we were tormenting Greg. And before you know it, Greg's got his Steel Claw wrestling singlet on with nunchucks. And Travis and I are locking. Yeah, Travis and I had to lock ourselves in the bedroom on that one. But there's a ton of stories that, I'll leave. I don't want to take too much time because I could go for a lot longer. But there's some stories that we probably didn't realize what assholes we were until, we were older. But we were on our way to a golf tournament, and we were going to all the way to Useless Bay, which is Whidbey Island. And it was a long drive. I can remember, I think we each had $10. We put some gas in, didn't have a lot of money, and Trav looks over and says, "Hey, I'm hungry." I said, "I am too." And we were going down Cook Road where Cook Road meets Chuckanut Drive, and we were going to take a left on Chuckanut Drive to get to Highway 20. And there was some this is actually embarrassing. This is really embarrassing. There's some spinach buses that were picking spinach on the in the fields there on Chuckanut Drive, and the pickers were all the way at the opposite end of the field. So Trav goes, I'm gonna pull in here, and I said, okay, I'm gonna run on the bus and grab a couple lunches, right? So Trav pulls over. I run from he had a black Pulsar, and I ran from his Pulsar into the truck, into the bus, and got 4 coolers for lunch, and we had lunch on the way to Useless Bay. So, and when you think about it now, you can think like, these poor kids, in the middle of the summer, and we just didn't think that way. But those are all the memories. Those are all the memories that I have for Trav. And I was talking to Greg last week about all of these times, and we have such outlandish, crazy stories that nobody will believe. That only Trav and I know the true story behind. And when you lose your best friend, you lose those stories. And I'll always be grateful for my friendship with Trav. And he was like a brother to me. And he's in a better place. He's in a better place. And so anybody who knows me knows that I'm an introvert by nature, and so this thing being up here is not for me. So, but I would do anything for Trav, and but I want you guys to think about that when it's time to tell a story, or and again, we don't want the good stories. We don't want the feel-good stories, right? We want the good stuff. We want to know. Again, this is about laughing, and I know that if it was my celebration of life, Trav would be up here doing the same thing, and trying to roast me. So, and he would roast every one of you guys. So please, I think that we'll just start from this side, and if anyone wants to raise their hand, I can hand him the mic. Here we go. Tim's going to say something.
I'm going to use the podium here, so yeah. I've never been called that, but thanks, Carol. But actually, speaking in the audience is, everyone's biggest fear, I think, sometimes. But I think I know most of you well enough that this should be fun, and that's all I'm going to make it here. So I think it was probably 1 or 2 a.m. when I wrote down some notes a few weeks back. And so if this is a little bit, not very consistent and doesn't flow, it's because there's so much I could say about Travis that I don't know where to begin. So now I'm going to try and keep it light, PJ. Where'd PJ go? There you go. So that we don't shed any more tears. But so anyway, I'll say a few things, and then I'll tell a couple of stories about that I think just highlights Travis just perfectly. So I'll bet he made you laugh. I mean, everyone can say that. So one of the most gregarious, fun-loving people you could meet. I'll bet he made you feel incredible about yourself. I'll bet he said, buddy, 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 when you're around about 3,000 times. So I'll bet he slapped your ass and about took you off your feet about 3,000 times also. And You probably turned to him and said, man, if you do that to me again one more time, I'm going to just take you off your feet. But you loved it every single time. I'll bet if you golfed with him, you saw one of the sweetest swings around. And if he was on your team, I'll bet he brought your game up to the next level. One of his favorite phrases, and you'll have to look this up if you don't know who David Goggins is, but he was a Navy SEAL that had no, just absolutely no athleticism about him at all. And he just said, I'm going to just outwork everybody in the world and prove everybody that even somebody like me can become a Navy SEAL. And he had a phrase, and it was called, who's got the boat? Who's got the boat? And Travis would say all the time, he's like, you got the boat, Timmy, you got the boat. So, and what that phrase meant was just, hey, nobody's going to do anything in this life, you got to do it yourself. And Travis just, the guy just lived to the fullest. So, with that said, I'm going to tell a couple of quick stories, and again, there's so many, but this is one of my favorites with Travis. So, again, like a lot of you, we played a lot of golf together, and it was always a battle when you played against him. But I had a hell of a lot more fun golfing with him, and so we were up at Avalon, and we were in a 27-hole match, and it was a 9-hole best ball, a 9-hole scramble, and a 9-hole alternate shot format. And we came off the first 9, and I'm pretty sure we were in the lead, or it was really close. And the two guys that we were playing with, the second 9, I think were tied with us, or maybe just a shot back. And so there was a little bit of a rule discrepancy on hole 1, I think west at Avalon, about who was supposed to hit the first tee shot, because now we moved to alternate shot format. And so Travis and I had about the same handicap. And so these two people that Travis knew, and I had met a couple times, Travis wasn't a fan of them, let's just put it that way. But so they said, no, you're supposed to tee off first, Tim, Travis. And I said, well, no, I think I am, because I thought I was low. Anyway, long story short, Travis was like 0.1 lower handicap, so they were right. He had to tee off first. So that just kind of put a fire under our belly, because I was maybe a little bit more accurate off the tee box, but he had one of the best iron swings in the world. So and so then I'd put it up close, and I know he'd knock the putt in with that copper beryllium putter that he was worn down to the nub and the grip. So anyway, so we get through that hole, we par it, we get to the next hole, and now I think the match is evened up with this pairing. And I'm on the tee box, and I snap hook one, not out of bounds on 2 West, but over in the woods. And I'm sure some of you know where 2 West is at Avalon, but I put him in jail. Well, he hoods some like 4 or 5 iron, like in tin cup, like hitting the pelican off the perch, and knocks it up near the green. And he had no business even getting it up near the green. And so I had a little 7 iron that I chipped up, and it ran out about 60 or 70 feet. And I buried it, and Travis was doing these like airplane turns around the green, going in your face to the group that we were playing with. And I'm like, he was so excited, I forgot that I chipped it in. I thought he chipped it in. I was just like, it was unbelievable. It made you feel so good about yourself, where that was like just Travis to a T, like pun intended, right? So, and on the T note, like, so we used to, like when we'd golf together in tournaments together, we'd call ourselves TNT, because I'm Tim and he's Travis. And so he'd always like pull out, like, I think it was like a cassette tape. And I'm like, who has a cassette tape? Like even a few years ago. And like he'd pull out AC/DC, and we'd play TNT before a golf tournament. And like, who plays like AC/DC before a golf tournament? So anyway, I always got a kick out of that. So the final story I'll tell is that, I visited him a few times in the desert, like when he was down there. And then one of the last memories I have of going down to visit him in the desert is that we were hiking the Bump and Grind Trail. So, which I think a few of you have out here in the audience have hiked. And so it's not a short hike. It's a pretty decent hike, and it was like I want to say it was like June in Palm Desert. It's not cool out at 7 a.m., so it's pretty hot. So we're hiking up, and Travis had just watched a little David Goggins that morning, and so he's like, "Let's go, Tim, let's go." And so he's like almost running up the first part. I'm like, "All right." And so every single person that we passed, and this is a really, really, really well-traveled trail. There must have been 1,200 people on that trail. He was like, "Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning." Like, just to every single person we passed. And if they didn't say good morning back, it was good morning, good morning, good morning, until they finally said good morning back. So I'll leave it with that, because I think that just paints the perfect picture of Travis. Anyway, never a dull moment with that guy. I love him like a brother. I have 3 older brothers, and I always called the Caffrey brothers my 3 younger brothers. So thanks for letting me speak.
Anybody else over here?
Well, I had one story about a hole-in-one that Brandon got to tell from his perspective. So it was an Egbers tournament. I was never a good golfer, so I always ended up just hanging out and loved to play, but caddied for Travis during that round at Egbers. So we're playing along, and as everybody knows, Travis is quite the prankster, and pretty much say anything to get a laugh or a joke. And so I'm caddying for him, and it's been a long day, and so I say, "Hey, Trav, hold on here. I got to go use the porta potty over here." So like Brando said, I'm off. I'm in the can, and next thing I know, I hear this banging on the door, and it's Travis. He's going, "I just hit a hole-in-one. I just hit a hole-in-one. You got to get out here." And it's like, "Sure you did. Come on, Trav, you're absolutely pulling my leg here. That did not happen. You better hurry up. You better hurry up if you want to see me pull it out of the cup." And so, all right, and I finish up, and sure enough, the guy had, hit a hole-in-one. I've never seen one. I've never hit one. The closest I'll ever be is being in the can when a friend of mine hit one. That's as good as it gets. So finish up that story from my perspective. But Travis was great. Everybody knows that he was a lot of fun. Brandon and Travis but Brandon and myself, Chad and Phil, a couple other people, all went to grade school together. And in the beginning, it was right. Travis was the annoying little pest that you couldn't shake. I think that's where Greg got it, because Greg, you couldn't get rid of him for nothing. He was always around. "What are you guys doing? Hey, what's going on in there? Hey guys, hey. But by the time we were all in high school together, for me anyway, Travis was just one of the guys. And that's because he was so much fun, and he just made you smile. I was probably a bad influence, so yeah. So I'll apologize to everybody. So Travis tried to play it off, because again, he's not going to cop to anything. But as having the stomach flu one evening, it was the maddest that Brandon's ever been at me in his entire life. We showed up to school Monday, and he just started beating on me. So it turns out we had Chad and I had taken Travis out and decided, hey, let's have a few beers. No big deal. And I think at this point I'm a senior and Trav's a freshman, and so we had a good time. It was time to go home, and it's like, well, we'll just drop Trav off at the house. He's a big boy, he can handle it. And well, little did I know that at that point Travis had gotten a little sick. And he and Brandon shared bunk beds at that point, with Brandon being on the bottom bunk and was a recipient of a stomach flu. So apparently there was a lot of cleanup on that one, and so my apologies there. So, but I'll just echo basically what everybody else has said today, that we could all sit up here and talk about what a great guy Travis was, and that's because he was the same guy to everyone. You always knew what you were getting with Trav. He was the same energetic smile, probably even to the golfer he didn't like. But he would always talk trash and egg you on and have a smile doing it. So to the people that he enjoyed and even the people he didn't. He was the same guy. So I'll remember him forever. So thank you.
Tim's going to say one more thing. So you guys have a little bit of time, but I didn't see a lot of hands, so I'm going to start picking people.
Sorry, I said I was going to be short, but anyway, there was a quote that I think it was, I think it was Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau, that I think just epitomizes Travis, and I just wanted to read it really quick. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could learn what it had to teach, and not when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear, nor did I wish to practice resignation unless it was quite necessary. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. To live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put to rout all that was not life, to cut a broad swath and shave close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms. I just thought that was Travis, and I had to read it, so.
I can tell one more story. Travis and I were tennis partners in high school. We weren't very good at tennis. We liked to play golf, so we'd pick up a tennis racket like the first day of practice and then just, play. And we were fairly competitive, but there would be times that we'd run into a better team or we'd start to lose a match. And I would look at Trav and say, hey, we need a momentum changer, or we need a call here. And if you can I want everyone to picture a tennis court. And we're playing doubles, right? So it's really wide. And Travis knew that meant that the next shot that these guys hit that was not even, I don't even want to say it was close to the line. The ball is probably on average 2 feet in. And he would look at the ball and it would be in and he'd go like this. He'd say, it's out. And it got so bad at times, because this was very common for us because we weren't that good, right? So we were always having to cheat or figure out a way to get into someone's head. And there were several matches that we actually had to have other coaches come and be a line judge for in high school, which isn't really normal. So, but again, Travis would never cop to anything, right? So this ball would be 2 feet in, and he would make the other doubles team feel so stupid. And I'm kind of the quiet one, right? Travis got his hat on backwards. He's ready to go to war, and I'm just kind of standing back like, okay, what's going on? These guys are cussing, and it was, but again, those are the memories that, we sound like a couple jerks, don't we? we're actually really nice. So that's my story. Maybe I'll throw another one out there if I can think of one. But here's Gary.
They're in trouble. I got off at 3 o'clock in the morning from working on the police department as it was shotgun shift is what they called it. So I slept from like 4 to whatever. And about 9 o'clock in the morning, I get a knock on the door, and it's the Skagit County Sheriff's Office. And in walks a deputy I knew, Chet Clark, and he says, I need to talk to you for a minute. And I said, okay, I'm just waking up. And he said, he pulls out these pictures of Travis's red Fox, I think it was, a Volkswagen, there you go. And he says, it seems as though somebody's been stealing gas at the Texaco station at the corner. And he says, do you recognize that car? And this is a kid that I hired as a policeman. And I said, yeah. He said, your son has been doing gas and goes at the gas station. And so at that time he was living with Ron Hass. Is Ron still here or did he leave? But so I called up Travis at Bellingham High School where he was going his senior year. And I said, you need to come home. And he said, what for? And I said, well, just come home. I'll tell you about it. And so I had arranged that he go over to the sheriff's office and talk to Chad Clark. Of course, he denies everything, right? But when you got the picture of him doing it, and so he went over there, and I said, well, you better not take too much ID because you may not be coming back. And so anyway, he'd always get caught on most things he did. But Travis and Greg aren't a whole lot different. I mean, there is some difference there, but I had when they were younger, I had taken up golf, and I think my first set of golf with a bag and everything was $54. That's woods, irons, everything. So I was a real golfer then, and later I bought what I thought was an expensive set of golf clubs. I don't know, maybe $100 or more than that. This is years ago. And so the police department was going to have a golfing thing, and I said, well, by then I was doing pretty good. I could play 9 holes without losing 2 sleeves of golf. That's 6 balls. So I went out to get my golf clubs, and I pulled them out of and I had new grips on them. But they were a foot shorter than what they were before. So Brandon and Travis took and cut them down for Greg. He said he needs golf clubs, and cut my golf clubs all off and gripped the new grips. It was always a challenge.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Just for the record, I was never with Travis on these gas and goes. I would have been, but he didn't invite me. I knew nothing about him. Anyone else? Sean? What's that? Oh, I guarantee you guys did the right thing.
All right, for those of you who aren't from Sedrewally, my name is Sean Frisbee. I grew up with Travis and these guys, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I'm going to use some profanity. I can't really tell a story about Travis without a few swear words in there. So the Toyota Corolla has been brought up a couple times, and I had the misfortune of riding the Toyota Corolla about a half a dozen times. And I remember the first time I ever hopped in the Corolla, and I'm talking to Travis. Hey, it was probably after golf practice or something, and Travis was like, "Yeah, this is TC squared." I was like, "TC squared? What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, Travis Caffrey, Toyota Corolla, TC squared." And I was like, "All right, TC squared." So the Corolla, I rode, like I said, about half a dozen times I rode with Travis, and it got to a point where it was just unsustainable. I couldn't ride the Corolla anymore because Travis was trying to get down every lyric to Bone Thugs and Harmonies, "I'll See You at the Crossroads." So it was nonstop "See You at the Crossroads" every time I rode in that thing. It was like over a 3-month period or something I rode with him. And I got so sick of that song, but he got very close to nailing. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that song, but I mean, I can't think that fast. He had every line, but except for maybe 1 or 2 lyrics here and there. I mean, he pretty much became Bone Thugs and Harmony on that song. I've rode in the Corolla, and it was an adventure, like PJ said. And I have personally seen the hand crank sunroof. It was pretty impressive. I can verify PJ's story about Travis cheating his ass off at tennis. I saw it. The specific example I can remember was at the Central Elementary School courts, which should have been condemned like in '74, and they're still playing tennis on those things. There's giant cracks small kid could have fallen into. But he wasn't playing with you. He was playing with another friend of ours, Joel Vansicle, and I think they were playing some Seom kids. You know, these were very well-mannered, proper, pop-collar Seom kids, and you know, they're getting beat by these guys, and Travis, you know, wasn't going to have it. He's a very competitive guy. And pretty soon, you know, the outs started coming when it was like 2 feet in, you know, the guys from CM were like, "Come on, man, come on." But what really kind of turned it is Joel was like, I guess at some point he couldn't take it. And he was telling Joel, stop, or he was telling, Travis, stop cheating. And Travis was like, what, I'm not cheating, And pretty soon it just comes to a head, and Joel tells him, if you cheat one more time, I'm going to beat you with a racket. And like is the next point, the out, and Joel just takes the ball, throws it up in the air, and serves it, and it drills Travis right in the chest and like knocks him 5 feet back. But what was remarkable is like 2 points later, Travis cheated again. I was like, this guy is committed. It's unbelievable. But Travis was very competitive. He was infuriating to play sports again because, like these guys have said, he will talk shit till time is over. But that may sound like a pejorative, like a put down. It really wasn't. I've had time to think about this. It made me better. It made me want to fight harder, do better, because Travis, he could back it up. We've talked about this a little bit. It was infuriating that he was like 2 or 3 years younger than us, but he'd pick up a sport and very quickly he'd be as good or better than we were. So, and he had a confidence that he didn't deserve. I remember one of the first things I remember about him is I think I met him probably when you guys were freshmen or I was junior. I was hanging out with all these guys, but immediately, he was Brandon's little brother and he played golf and he got good at it quickly, so he hung out with us. Travis right away, it was like he had no fear. When I was a freshman, I was afraid of everybody. Everyone was older, bigger, smarter, stronger than me. But Travis, right off the bat, he felt like he was one of us. He had this preternatural confidence. I remember even though I was older, I was always kind of envious of that. I was always kind of impressed by that he had this internal strength, this confidence in himself that he could step right into a group of people and believe in himself. And I kind of learned something from Travis in that regard, to kind of believe in yourself and have confidence in yourself. And I always feel like I owe him a little bit of a debt of gratitude over that, because I was an insecure kid, like most kids, but Travis kind of taught me to find a way to believe in yourself. So that was a great thing about him. That confidence was something that really shone through. A couple other quick questions. This isn't my experience. This is a secondhand experience through another friend of ours, Gabe. Just another one of Travis's shenanigans, but Gabe related the story to me. They were on a golf trip going up to Sun Valley or something, and after the tournament, Gerds pulls over at McDonald's, and everybody's getting their Happy Meal or whatever they're getting, and Travis gets his, and halfway through the meal, he gets up and goes over to the desk, and he hands the burger to the manager and says, "Hey, there's hair in this burger." Well, unbeknownst to the manager, that was Travis's hair. He'd pulled it right out of his own head and stuffed it in the burger. He's like, "I want a new burger." And the guy's like, "Well, where's your receipt?" And Travis is like, "I threw that thing away." He's like, "I don't keep the receipt." And he's like, "Well, who did you get it from?" And Travis goes, "I got it from you." And the guy's like, "Oh, really?" The manager's like, "Okay, we'll get you another burger." But I didn't know this. Chad was just telling me that it became a habit. Apparently, every golf trip, he'd work a extra meal for the road out of the manager at McDonald's. There's a million of those. Like I said, you may be tempted to think that this paints a bad picture of Travis, but Travis was a very loyal guy. Like I said, I hated competing against him because he would always kick your butt, and then he'd really make you feel bad about that. But so you really tried your hardest. But whenever you were with him or playing on his team, it was 100%. He was giving you his best effort. He was behind you the entire way. And like some of you guys have mentioned, competing with him and on his team, he'd get pumped up, he'd get excited, and that felt good to get that kind of support and have that team mentality and him making you feel good. But there was only one time I think I can remember ever getting under his skin, because he was so good at getting under yours. We used to play basketball a lot, and I remember one time we were playing at Cascade Middle School. One of our friends, his dad was a teacher there, and we'd go play at nights and stuff. And Travis was a pretty good basketball player, frustratingly enough. And he'd get pretty hot. He'd start hitting a bunch of shots, and then you'd never hear the end of it. But I remember one night, for whatever reason, he went stone cold. I mean, he couldn't hit a shot to buy his life. And we started calling him, every time we throw up a shot, it'd be brick, brick, brick. We started calling him the Mason. He was throwing up so many bricks. It's like, hey, Mason, throw up another brick. And you could just see him starting to get more and more angry through the night. And finally, I think before he even shot, he was about to pull up. I throw a brick, Mason, and he clanks it, and he doesn't even watch it go in. He just comes after me. He runs over, and we tussle, and I think some people pull us apart, but I'll always cherish that moment. It was the moment I got under Travis' skin for the first time ever. So, but I haven't talked to Travis in a long time, and when I heard he had passed, it really hit me pretty hard. It was really sad, and I think what made me the most sad about it was because Travis was very quick. I mean, some of you guys have talked about how quick-witted he was, how smart he was. He was always a half step ahead of you. And, I remember thinking, he had unlimited potential, and to see his potential cut short this early in his life is just heartbreaking to me. But I'll always cherish the time I had with Travis and some of those realizations and, some of that confidence I saw in him that made me believe that I could be confident myself too. So I'm going to miss him, and I'm going to cherish the memories of him.
Good job, Friz. Okay, I got one more came to mind with Travis and I. We were on a school bus coming back from Bellingham playing tennis. We were in the back of the bus, and there was probably, 15 tennis players on the bus. And we were driving down I-5. And Trav and I were sitting together, and I got a Trav, let's start flipping off cars and see what they do. He thought that was a good idea, and so did I. So we start to flip off cars, and we're getting reactions. And we're probably 2 miles from the Cook Road exit. I would take the blame. I really would. Travis flips this guy off. We're right next to each other. He flips this guy off, and this guy's got a leather jacket on, and he's got a big beard, and he's a passenger. And Travis flips him off, and this guy goes nuts. And so we are in the right turn lane, and we're getting ready to get off of the exit. And this guy has his wife or whoever pull right in front of us and stops our bus in the middle of the exit on Cook Road and gets on the bus. And our coach has no idea what's going on here. And so this guy gets on the bus and starts swearing and saying, these guys are flipping us off. And Trav's in the back of the bus yelling, let me at him, let me at him. And needless to say, we got suspended for that one. But again, I really want to make it clear, we're good people. We really are. So yeah, maybe another one. There's a lot more. So does anyone else have anything?
So PJ is my older cousin. But, first and foremost, I had the honor of being welcomed into the Caffrey's home when I was younger. Just amazing. We thought we were so cool because we knew Brandon. And Greg and I were the same age. And, talk about growing up with two guys that, we had nothing to worry about, right? We were little guys running around causing all sorts of ruckus. And then when we got in trouble, we just called PJ or Travis. And it all got cleaned up, and we really had nothing to worry about. I always remember Travis being over the top, right? Just, I can do anything. I can get there. I cherish those moments still today, right? I think about what he brought to that. Just, he can do anything, and he can back it up, right? I never saw him step away from anything. I see a lot of that in his brothers. I see that in Greg. I see that in Brandon. I'm blessed to just know these guys my entire life. But I will, end this with a funny story. So I was a huge Seahawks fan growing up. And Travis, we went back and forth because we had years where we were 1-17, right? He'd call me and say how bad it was and just beat you up on a Sunday night. But when we were little, it was collected cards, right? And Greg, you probably remember this. We would collect the football cards and stuff. And so Travis, one day, I think he thought it was a great joke, but he really sold me on it. So he would sign the cards, right, with his own Sharpie. And so I would say, oh, I got a really cool rookie card, I was like, I'm going to make a deal with you. And he goes, oh, I got one of those signed. So he'd bring me all these cards signed all the time. I'd pay for them. Always running out of money. And, he brought me one, and I was so proud of it. I can't even remember the player, but I just loved it, right? I cherished it. And I had it for 2 or 3 years. And him and I were out doing something, and I said, hey, I still got that card. He goes, oh, really? He goes, I signed that thing. And he gave it back, and I just... But, he just did that to me to pump me up, right? It was being a joke, but it was also just because he knew I'd get excited about it. And he would, the thing about Travis is he would do anything for anybody. I could call him up any time. He would do anything for anyone. He was just like that. And I cherish so much about Travis, things that all pass along to my kids. And I see that so much in just being here with his family. And I see that in his brothers. And I just love all you guys to death. And, contrary to what he's saying, they were good guys. So I'll back that up. But just really happy to be here, and thank you all.
All right. My name's Troy, and I had the pleasure to meet Travis and run around with Travis in Scottsdale 2004 to 2008 range. But this story is from Coeur d'Alene, and it's just a funny story about Trav. We had rented a house on the lake, and I'd gotten into town. Travis was already in town, and so he picked me up, went to the house, threw my bag down, and we went out and got on the boat. And we were out on the lake all day, and we came in that night, had a bonfire down on the sand. And it was late, and I'd been traveling, so I was like, I'm going to go up to the house and go to bed. So I went in, found a couch or something, went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and I kind of walked around the house. I was looking for Travis and couldn't find him. So I walked down to the boat, and I was like, yeah, maybe he slept on the beach or slept on the boat, and Travis wasn't down there. So I walked back up the 500 stairs, and as I'm walking in the back of the house, Travis is walking in the front of the house. And I'm like, where have you been? He's like, I slept at the neighbor's last night. I walked up the wrong flight of stairs. And, great people. They made me chocolate chip pancakes this morning. And so I was like, oh, wow, okay. And so that day we were going fishing, and so we took showers or whatever, and we were down back on the dock. And sure enough, the guys next door were waving at us. And Travis is like, oh, boy, there they are. And we're waving, and they come down, and they're like, hey, did your buddy tell you where he slept last night? And we're like, yeah, he went up the wrong flight of stairs. He slept at your place. And he's like, yeah, did he tell you who he slept with? We're like, no, he didn't mention who he slept with. And he's like, well, he slept with my 28-year-old nephew, Jim. And we're like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, we rented this house. We're having a family reunion. And Jim came up for breakfast this morning, and he said, who's that guy sleeping with me? And we all said, there's nobody sleeping with you. And Jim was like, no, there's a guy downstairs sleeping with me. And so they all went downstairs and kind of shook Travis, and Travis woke up and didn't know what was going on. And I guess I bring that up because it's a funny story, but if it was me, I probably would have been arrested. And Travis sat down and had chocolate chip pancakes with him. So that's just, that was Travis.
That was good. That was good. Anyone else? Ken.
Stortzy, that's a tough one to follow. My name's Ken Casey. I met Travis he moved to Scottsdale in around 99. And, you know, like it's all said, one thing I'll start off, you don't have to hear any golf stories with me. Trav played golf with me one time, and I sucked so bad, we never had to worry about playing golf again. So he was very smart when it came to that. So no golf stories. But to reiterate, like what Brando said a lot of times, I never met a person in my life that walked into a room with a better smile, you know, and just lit it up like Travis. I mean, and the attitude, and like you said, when he genuinely cared how somebody was doing, he genuinely cared. So it was unbelievable, and I'll remember that. And he always referred to me as a brother, and I would tell you this, I was proud to call him a brother. So an amazing guy, but not keep it all hearted. More important than anything, I hear all this Seahawk talk. We converted him to a good Broncos fan for about 10 years while he was in Colorado. So never forget that. He was cheering hard for the Broncos with a lot of times. So irony, I saw last night a score, and I thought that was pretty good when I saw that last night. But anyway, we'll appreciate his preseason. But no, like everybody, we love him, and we'll miss him a lot. So thank you.
How about that Super Bowl, though? Broncos who? Anyone else? Yeah. Over at halftime. Anyone else? Okay, so we're going to do just a little 3 or 4 minute slideshow. And then just gather around and talk and visit. And again, on behalf of the Caffreys and the McLeods, thank you for everyone coming. Everyone had to travel, except Greg. Greg lives 10 minutes from here, and he's the one, he and Meredith set up the venue, so go figure, right? So anyways, thank you all for coming.
you.